Sorry, guys, some technical difficulties.
There you go. No worries.
Benoit, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. How do you do?
Great.
Okay.
You can see the screen as well?
Yes, you can see the screen. Beautiful.
Okay, great.
Then we go back.
Cool. Okay, so thank you guys for being here, and thanks again to Shannon to give an explanation. I think she left already, or is she still there? Okay, great. Okay, so today we're going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing in ICEE Space, and we're basically the habitat or analog mission that is located in Iceland in the lava tubes. So a little bit of a different perspective. So who is presenting here today is me and Marc. We're the co-founders of ICEE Space. We basically started the whole Chill Ice project 2-3 years ago. So we have some background, and Marc will give you a little bit of explanation about ICEE Space, why we started ICEE Space, what our objectives are, and then I will tell you a little bit more about the research itself. And then we can go to you, Marc.
Sounds good. Okay, so first of all, maybe a short explanation also what Chill Ice and ICEE Space are exactly. Even closer, nice. So Chill Ice is a project which is an acronym because, of course, in space we like our acronyms. And the acronym stands for the construction of a habitat inside a lunar analog lava tube in Iceland. And we started this project, or actually I founded this project basically in 2018 in collaboration with the EuroMoonMars group, which I think Al and Bernard will tell a little bit more about in a bit. And from then on, we actually developed this our own project, and since 2020, we've been running on our own with a very good partnership, so with EuroMoonMars group. And in 2021, so last Northern Hemisphere summer, we actually had our very first campaign inside these lava tubes, and for that, we will get back to Charlotte in a bit. And then from that point onwards, we actually said, okay, so we have a project, we have a mission running, we want to repeat this mission, we want to repeat the research and also develop more research, develop more technologies as well. And for that, we also need to, of course, have a legal structure, financial structure, sort of a backbone, so to say, to the project. And that's where ICEE Space comes from. So that's the company, and of course also a little bit of the relation between ICEE Space, which stands for the Isolated Compliant Extreme Environments, and of course in space, and the Chill Ice project. I think we switched some of the slides. Yeah, sorry. So I think we've already skipped past the introduction to who Charlotte is exactly and who I am exactly. So I will just give my own introduction, and I'll also give the word to Charlotte back a bit later. So I'm actually a geologist or an exogeologist from Amsterdam, and I'm mainly looking at rocks, I'm talking to rocks, licking rocks, and I'm getting stuck in rocks. So that's sort of my main thing to do, and that's also one of the reasons why I like Iceland so much, because there are a lot of rocks to get stuck in. And from that point onwards, actually, I started looking to the Earth sciences and how we can actually utilize the Earth to learn more about the Moon and Mars, and maybe even other planets, maybe even exoplanets as well. But also at the same time, how we can actually use the technologies and the information that we have from the Moon, from Mars, from the other planets, to actually learn a little bit more about the planet Earth. And I'm of course not doing that alone. I have a very, very cool team with me as well. We have six of the main members right here, but we are actually currently working in a team also with an MCC for the next Chill Ice mission, which is 27 people from 13 different countries. Which is very big fun because we can actually work 24/7 now because we have so many people all across the world. It's also a big danger for me because, well, if I can work 24/7, I sometimes work 24/7. So I can hopefully scale that also a little bit better in the future. So yeah, ICEE Space itself is really a sort of a testbed and test development company. Where we are not only trying to host these missions, but also to utilize these missions to develop the technologies needed for actual extraterrestrial research. And in the next slide, yes, exactly. That's, I think, one of the main questions that I'm also here to answer, of course, being a geologist. Why are we going to latitudes? Why are we going to Iceland? And that also has to do with what we want to do on the Moon, because earlier, of course, in the 1960s and the 1970s, The Americans went to the moon basically just to go to the moon, and then we did, of course, very cool research there. We are still learning a lot from the samples that we took back then. But at the same time, there wasn't really a purpose of staying much longer. And that is one of the goals that we have currently, to actually go back to the moon and stay there for longer periods, or maybe even indefinite periods of time. And to have a semi-permanent habitat on the moon is a very big difference from actually just going to the moon for a couple of hours, staying there, doing your astronaut things, taking rock samples, deploying your instruments, and just get the hell back to Earth. So on the lunar surface, it's actually a quite harsh environment. I think most of you will already know. Of course, you have the radiation, both the solar radiation, but also the microwave and background radiation, all the way back from the origin of the universe. But you also have meteorites.
No, just my student now, and then next half an
yeah.
hour I speak.
Maybe you can mute yourself. Can we mute?
Yeah, you have to. You're the host now.
We're the host now. So
You have
we
the power.
to mute people. That's awesome. Anyway, because here on Earth, of course, we have a very nice and cozy atmosphere. And that means that those meteorites, micrometeorites, usually don't really impact the Earth, they impact our atmosphere. And the micrometeorites are tiny specks of dust, usually less than 1,000 millimeter in size, but they travel at enormous speeds, about 20 to 30 kilometers per second. And here on Earth, they just burn up in our atmosphere. We say, oh, shooting star will make a wish, some silly sort of human thing. But on the moon, it can actually kill you. It will go right through you. And it's, I don't think, going to be a very pleasant experience. I haven't experienced it myself, but I would recommend against it. And lastly, even if you have the protection against meteorites, you still need to have some sort of thermal insulation, especially on the equatorial plane of the moon. You can have a temperature variance of about 300 degrees Kelvin Celsius, where it's going down to almost minus 200 degrees during the lunar night, which is 14 days of blinding darkness, just bitter cold. And at the same point, you have 14 days of very, very intense sunlight, in which temperatures can go up to plus 160, plus 180 degrees Celsius. And if you have a relatively small, lightweight habitat, which is usually made of metal alloys, you can actually get the shrinking and the expanding of those metal alloys over the course of several months or lunar days, which will eventually also break down your habitat. So you need something which has very thick walls, which is strong enough to withstand the radiation, to withstand all those things, and then of course also keep the regolith out. But at the same time, you cannot transport a whole house with very thick walls from Earth to the moon. So you need to have some sort of local processes or structures, features that you can use. And one of those things that you can use are lava tubes. And that's exactly why we are going to Iceland, because in Iceland you also have lava tubes. There are also some lava tubes in other places, but we also have the benefit of Iceland being quite a barren environment. So there's not too much living there. So you tend to have relatively raw rocks as well. And that's actually also one of the other very cool potential things, I think, of using lava tubes for your habitat, not just on the lunar surface, but they also exist on the Martian surface. And whereas here in Iceland, we can basically build a habitat which is maybe 4 or 5 meters high, the lava tubes don't tend to be much longer than maybe 1 or 2 kilometers in length. But on the moon, because of the lower gravity, these structures actually tend to be a big structure. So instead of just having a small habitat, you can actually construct a whole lunar city inside of it. Some of those structures have been found to be more than 70 kilometers in length, over 300 meters wide, and sometimes more than 150 meters high. So I think you can fit the whole city of Cambridge inside of it like 20 times, which I think is also showing the great potential of the expansion of these lava tubes, especially on the lunar surface. And then looking onward, looking further even, and also going back to Shannon's talk, what if we want to go to Mars? One of the things, of course, what we want to learn on Mars is to see if we can find traces of fossil life. But sure, I think there are probably some believers of there is life on Mars theory as well. I think it would be very cool, but I think Mars is also a very harsh environment. So I think if there would be something living on Mars, and it would have been able to survive for the past billions of years, then evolution would probably indicate that it would also have learned to thrive on the Martian surface, which I think isn't really happening right now. Otherwise, I think we would have probably seen it from Earth already. So one of the things where we can maybe find traces of fossil life are the places which are so protected, such as the lava tubes, where you don't have the impacts, where you don't have the radiation, where you don't have the thermal variances. And of course, on Mars, you also have wind erosion and other types of erosion, which is also generally not happening or happening to a much lesser degree inside those lava tubes. So it's not just the potential for keeping humans safe, it's also potential for keeping ancient or fossil life safe. And I think it's one of the very cool places to try and start to develop this. And that's why we are going into Iceland and to our specific lava tube, which is called Stefanshellir. And now we have the word back to Charlotte to talk a little bit more about ICEE Space and what we're doing exactly.
So let's talk business now. Thank you, Marc, for the geology talk. So as we mentioned earlier, we just started. So we had our first prototype mission last year, and wonder by wonder, it went successful. Nobody died, everybody survived. The Analogue astronauts were kind of happy because we let them to do an 8-hour EVA wearing the Astroland spacesuits. So very thank you to Astroland for that. And it's growing exponentially. Like it's insane. It's going so fast that we cannot even keep up with it. And that's why we have a new team of 27 hardworking international people. So currently we're expanding. The CHASM 2 mission is happening in 2022 in August. And the reason why it's only in August and it's only one mission a year is because Iceland has a lot of snow and the lava tubes tend to fill up with snow. And you cannot take yourself in there, so we have to wait till the sun comes up and we can enter the lava tubes. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. So the CHASM 1 mission in general, what I mentioned before, it went successful. We went into the lava tube. I think we're running a little bit out of time, so I'm gonna pass forward. So here you see a small part of the team. We were on site of Iceland, from Analogue astronauts to researchers, scientists, engineers, the rescue team. So the big guy in red, he was there to keep the astronauts alive. We had a 1-week training beforehand because the people have to be trained for lava tubes. You're not allowed to enter without protective gear. So the Analogue astronauts actually had to be very safe in case anything could happen because the slopes of the lava tubes are 69 degrees. And they had to crawl in with all the experiments and equipment, like 50 meters inside the lava tube. So solar panels, batteries, heavy equipment. So it can be quite dangerous. So we were very protective of making sure nothing would happen, and nothing did happen, besides a successful mission. So we have a 3D scan of the Stefanshellir cave that we did with our partner Portland Logistics. I think you have to press the play button. Yes, and then if you can scroll further to 2 minutes. So this is made with our partner for Planet Logistics. They mapped the cave for us using drone footage and machine learning. If you want to have the data, they're open for collaboration, but it's about 6 terabytes. So get a good computer. So you will see some different entry points, and this is actually really accurate. And for the next mission, we're also going to use this model to implement it, for example, in augmented reality, so that the astronauts can have a waypoint navigational system where they can move towards. Okay, can you go to the last part where you see our cave, the lava tube part? Yes, so here you enter, you see the big pile of rubble, and they actually have to navigate after it. So the habitat was an inflatable deployable system, which is also a new technology that we're developing, which goes behind the pile of rubble. So they have to crawl on the right side to it. And then it has to be able to set up by 3 Analogue astronauts within 8 hours. And that was the most difficult part of the whole mission. So next slide. So as Shannon mentioned, research is very important. Papers, publication, going to conferences, presenting your work is of high importance, and it's also for ICEE Space and also for the CHASM mission, because that is our contribution of data and our research that we want to share to the academic world. So for example, we had some stress clock test results, which was basically how the Analogue astronauts, their stress handles were. So you can see during the mission, their stress handles, the stress levels were insane. That's why their progress dropped a lot, which is actually a critical point also for Analogue and also for space missions. If you're in space and you're having so much stress, you're less focused on something small that could happen and you're just missing it. So we're putting them under a lot of stress to see what these kind of results are, but we're also focusing on robot and human exploration with the TU Delft and with some other universities. And if you want to learn more about the research, you can come and have a chat with us later. Yeah, so we developed our own power system that works in remote settings, so PBES. Maybe next slide. So you can see PBES laying up here. I heard that Shannon mentioned 15 kilowatts for 6 analog astronauts. We did it with 2. So they had the bare minimum just to survive, just to have a heater, just to have hot water for their drive-these meals, just to basically stay alive. And I think Sebastian also can tell a little bit about that. That just went okay. We learned a lot. Our habitat that we designed with KPU Canada had insulation properties, but not enough because the analog astronauts were still very cold. We had to keep the astronaut spacesuits on during the night just to stay warm, and actually their material was very well to use. Next. Yeah, so you see the habitat on the left. Of course, lava tubes are dark, so we have to use internal and external lighting just to get a little bit of an image. It has an airlock system, it has a toilet bathroom part, and then it has the common sleeping area all in one. For future missions, we're going to try to set it up as an automatic inflatable deployable habitat so that the analog astronauts have a little bit less of a hard time. And also that's what we expect to do on the moon. And here on the right, you saw that there's a rover. Another model is that we developed with David Smith. He was also one of the analog astronauts during the mission, is the SpotNet AR astronaut detection model. So if you would implement this machine learning technology, for example, in the HoloLens or in other augmented reality devices, you could detect where your other astronauts are located. And you could see, for example, hey, your body is too far away, you get an alert, watch and look out where your body is. Next slide. So this is an after movie that we made with GoPro, one of our sponsors and partners. It is 6 minutes long, so I'm going to skip a little bit of it, but you can watch the full video on our website. And you see our analog astronauts doing some geology explaining. They had to collect a lot of samples for Marc. So thank you for keeping them busy with your rocks. As you see, it is dark. They did have the lights that were connected on the helmet, but still it was a lot of work. Here you see that they had to use a bicycle pump to inflate it. This is supposed to be automatic for the next missions. Also, you see that the fogging happens because lava tubes and caves can be very humid and condensed. So also fogging at the ISS at the EMUs that they use there, the spacesuits, also has a lot of fogging problems. Maybe we can go to the next slide.
Yes.
Yes, so what I told you about the augmented reality in astronaut helmets, I brought the HoloLens with me. We are testing the NASA suits software. So if you want to have a tryout, it's still a demo, but you can come after later to me and we can set it up. Okay, then the CHILLICE 2 mission, Marc.
Yes, I will quickly take over for I think the last 90 seconds or so that I still have left.
Minus 90.
Minus 90, yeah. So I just want to quickly introduce you also to the scenario of the second CHILLICE mission, which is again going to take place this August. So our last mission, we were basically having the scenario where you sort of crash landed on the lunar surface. You only have the oxygen which you're carrying on your back, so only 8 hours of oxygen to actually construct the habitat, to set up the communication, to set up the power supply, and to also bring all the supplies like the foods and the expendables inside the habitat. For this mission, we are going to expand a little bit, so we will have 6 days and 5 nights inside the lava tube. We were also going to be a bit further into the lava tube. We're going to be about 120 meters away from the skyline, which means that it's actually going to be pitch black for the astronauts, and they will be hopefully also sort of psychologically tortured to like a healthy amount, of course, and hopefully they will still be alive after this. And our mission is basically that we are transporting the astronauts from a lunar base, which is a bigger sort of base, and they will be going into the lava tube specifically for the research, and they take the emergency shelter, which is the Echo habitat also from the KPU, with them and setting it up in there, and basically survive there for a couple of days just to do the research, just to focus mainly on robotics, but also on geological and astrobiological observations. Yeah, and lastly, of course, for ICEE Space, it's also very important to us to actually get involved with the community to make sure that the general public knows about it. And that's also why we are working together with people from the SGSC, for example, to make sure that we actually make sure that our knowledge for these missions also gets spread out into the world. I'm also on some of the podcasts in the Netherlands, and of course we go to a lot of congresses and conferences, CHASM or ICEE. I think CHASM is even more fun. And I also want to thank our partners. We have quite a few. Yeah, so we have quite a few partners. Thank you very much. Without those partners, of course, it would not be possible. And then lastly, if I have just one more moment of your time, I think it will now be to also open up our call for analog astronauts. So if you want to become an analog astronaut with CHILL 2, you want to get the psychological torture of being stuck inside a lab tube for 6 days straight, please apply with us. You can use your phone to scan this QR code, or you can just email us at info@chillice.
You're the first to see this. So we're going to make it public, I think around 12
Yes.
on our social media channels as well.
So if you apply quickly, you can be the first. And yeah, thank you very much, and let's stay in contact.
Anyone got a question? If you do, come here so we can put you to microphone. Go on it. But it's a way to get warmed up for the next talk. Fantastic talk.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I think it's amazing what you did in the last year, and all the work you're doing it's really cool. I just have a question about you mentioned the MCC. So I wanted to know how you think about implementing that, if you really have a concept or a prototype, and yeah, that's a question actually.
So you mean how we set up our MCC, or?
Yeah, and how you will in the future, because you said that you want to implement it with the 26 people we have the team.
Yeah, so that's indeed a little bit of a problem. Also because maybe also a little bit from climatic sort of challenges. I think it would not be ideal to actually have our full MCC on site. So this is also going to be our first sort of tryout this summer, actually, with a sort of buy local MCC, which is partially going to be anywhere on Earth, and we will have about 14 people actually joining us in ICEE. So it's going to be a little bit of both, but I think it's also probably, or hopefully actually going to be the future, where you don't have just one base on Earth where you're communicating with from the moon, especially because it's going to be even more important for science communication in the future to also reach the general public, to actually have multiple bases on Earth, multiple bases for MCCs, or partial MCCs, I guess, to reach out to.
And
Maybe to add on that, our MCC is not just the MCC for the mission, like a mission control center. No, they do all the preparation work. They're really hands-on, working with us, developing all the systems, thinking about what we need, about requirements. So they're also really part of our team and our business. It's not only that they are helping with the mission part, they're helping with a whole bigger picture. So we had a mission control center open call, where we got a lot of grateful applicants from people who work on the ISS, who work at Aztec, work at the Australian Space Agency, experts, but also students and also young professionals, because we try to include everyone from all sectors, which even led that we have an artist from America. He's Dutch, but he's an American rapper, Jesse Porte. So he will also be seeing most of our socials, because he's kind of presenting like the art and our social to it, because we're researchers and like geologists and engineers. So for us, that's still a part to learn to present to the public.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Bravo.
Guys, we just want to give a special thank you to Eleanor and the whole CHASM conference. Thank you for making this possible, because as Shannon said, it is of a huge priority to get this whole community up and running, because we need to gather data and we need to reuse the data, so there's no redundancies. So thank you, Eleanor.
Okay, perfect. So next up is EuroMoonMars. So I will be completing the talk. But Bernard, you're up next. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hello, how do you do? It's a great start for the conference. So bravo to the organizer, Eleanor, and all the colleagues. I followed also with interest the previous talks. And so if you allow me to share my presentation, I'd like to share some overview of EuroMoonMars.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'll go and make it first.
Yeah. Okay. And so EuroMoonMars is in fact a platform that we have started some 14 years ago with the support initially of the European Space Agencies, of the International Lunar Exploration Working Group, of the LUNEX, Lunar Explorer Society. And so it's a platform where we provided opportunities for research. So let's see. Yeah, I should have this. Okay. Yeah, I should be able to start. Advance. Okay. Let's see again.
If you want, I also have your presentation. I can also.
Yeah, but I made some. Okay, that's funny because we just tested just before, and so let's see. Okay, so let's see where we are. So advance. Did you change something in the setting that we tested before? Because
no, I didn't. So which one did you make first? Which one now?
Radar space.
I think it should be the other one.
Okay. Because here I see only.
Yeah.
No, but I.
That's working now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I put in full screen. Do you see it well?
Yes. I think that's perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So, as you can see, actually, I put myself on the camera on my iPhone. So if you from time to time you want to see me, but it's not so convenient. So yes, EuroMoonMars we started like 14 years ago, and so in the meantime, we had a number of collaborators, many young professionals. So I have just counted that involved since 2008. We had 165 young professionals that have been involved. And so we had some cohort every year of collaborators analyzing data, as it was one of the first goals, testing instrument, demonstrating them for a future mission, but in the lab, but that also in analog field campaign. And then we have developed as well some facilities for training astronauts. And also now we have developed a branch which is looking at Earth data, developing services, developing business and making money so that we can also pay the young professionals that are working with us. So I've put some of the names of those that have been involved recently. One note is that I have been working at ESA for 30 years, but I left ESA last year. And so now I am more dedicating in particular to run the EuroMoonMars Earth Space Innovation Program. I'm also professor in various universities, Leiden, Amsterdam, EPFL Lausanne, and also ISU. And I am involved in some foundation that are also helping us to develop this program. So to start, we had a program dedicated to analyze the data, in particular when we were preparing for Smart One and Mars Express, and we are operating in particular to look at those data. And more recently, we have also collaborated with some AI department to apply AI techniques to analyze space data from the moon, from Mars, from astronomy, about exoplanets, and also about operating robots. And so, as you know, we have, I was in charge of a Smart One, the first moon mission of this millennium that was launched in 2003, and where we got some amazing result about the poles of the moon, where we would emplace a future base. And we have also analyzed this data. Now, as you know, we have now started a robotic village on the moon. And in 2013, China launched a lander and a rover, and the lander is still in operation after 9 years. And so de facto, we had a permanent robotic presence on the moon. In the meantime, so that's a lander that Chang'e 3 deployed. In 2019, they even landed on the far side of the moon, also deployed a brother rover. And in 2020, they had also a lander with a rocket on it, and they performed the first automatic sample return with a rendezvous in orbit and then a re-entry capsule to the Earth. So in fact, that was also how EuroMoonMars was born, to help in the preparation, in the validation of robotic missions to start with. And 25 years ago, when we created the International Lunar Exploration Working Group, so that is a forum between space agencies, but also space academia, industries, and we have tried to open it also to non-space academia and actors, because we believe that step by step we are going to establish a moon village. So the first step is orbiters, precursors, then the robotic village, where we are really in the middle of, and we'll have some robots that are going to deploy some larger structures, including habitat, food production systems, and construction. And we'll have a human outpost followed by a permanent, sustainable human base. And I believe that within 10 years, or say 2030, we could have a human sustainable permanent presence on the moon, with starting with 10 astronauts, so could be some of you. And we have really to learn how we operate in an effective way. And after, we are going to have a even larger population, possibly 100 people in 2040, 1,000 in 2050. And so we have to prepare the research and also the survival and all the operations there. And there, research and analog simulation can be a key to help to optimize what we are going to do in the next year. So that's on this line that we started in 2008. This was a time when Google Lunar X Prize had a competition. So $30 million to the first that could land on the moon and send some videos. So we built Google Lunar X Prize lander. It's called ExoGeoLab. In fact, we built a lander platform as a way to test instruments that we could put on some of this commercial Google Lunar X Prize lander. So we use this lander in various functions. For instance, to test cooperative robotics, how a lander together with two robots can work together. And actually, we did some tests with the Austrian Space Forum early on in the Eiffel volcano region, after we did some tests at EuroMoonMars. So these are some regular tests that we have been conducting in the volcano that is the closest from Poland. That's the Eiffel Volcano Park, where in a few weeks, some 20 meters of ashes were deposited in this area. And so we deployed our landers there, and we test also some human lander robotic partnership there. So this is, as you see, a picture we took on the moon with our ExoGeoLab lander, together with the Austrian Space Forum astronaut suit. That's where we were testing this partnership between astronaut operations and lander, rovers, and instruments. So we have been also collaborating since 2017 with the German Aerospace Center, DLR, which has launched a campaign called ROBEX. First, it was a robotic alliance that was one part underwater, but other part planetary robotics, where they deployed two autonomous intelligence rovers together with a lander, and they have a manipulator that can extract some instrument box on the lander and deploy them on the surface. So we had a campaign in 2017. There was a campaign planned in 2019, which was postponed also because of COVID 2020, 2021. It will take place at large in 2022 in June, 15th of June. We will have two of these rovers, a lander. We'll have a ESA rover teleoperated by an astronaut. We'll have a number of drones, and we will deploy some 15 shoebox modules, which carries instrument to analyze samples, also radio antenna for simulating radio interferometry on the moon, and sample analysis. And so we are collaborating with this. Now, last year, because we postponed this big Arches telerobotic campaign, we took the initiative to organize a smaller campaign with the EuroMoonMars group. We called it EuroMoonMars Etna, or Etna. So there we had a number of interns working on a project with drones, with rovers. We have a little rover for EuroMoonMars investigation. So his nickname is Remy. It was brought also to Hawaii in a campaign. We had a camera simulating the ExoMars camera. We have a spectrometer, and we have also a radio antenna. So we tested that in our area near ESTEC. So we have a test bed inside ESTEC. We have a test bed right outside, but also we go to the beach for demonstration. We can see the rover. We can even explore water birds. You can see in our program. Very close to outside ESTEC, also a beautiful training area. It's called DECOS Moon Mars Yard, where we have been testing drones, rover, and lander and astronaut operation. Now, in July last year, we had a number of interns working with me. Some of them I had never seen, so they were in a remote pandemic internship for 4 months, and I met them for the first time at Etna. So we met there where we performed some tests of instruments, but also investigations. So this is one of the experiments observing the Sun and Jupiter in the very low frequency radio, like we will want to do on the moon. And for this reason, we wanted to test this equipment in the Etna condition, which has a soil which is similar to the one we have on the moon. We also went to Mars. There, near Etna, there are places which are very similar to the ancient Mars in Pano. And eventually, we went also to the top of Etna, where we demonstrated the different sequence of landing a small spacecraft on the surface of the moon, and then deploying a rover, deploying a camera, getting samples, analyzing samples with spectrometer. So a bit in kind of a functional support of what we will do with future Moon and Mars landers, like ExoMars or the future landers and rovers on the moon. Also. So eventually, we also went to the surface, and it was a phase where there was big volcanic activities on Etna. In fact, de facto, the middle of the night, we woke up and there was a big rain of ashes on our head. Then 1 day later, we went to the summit and we went closer to the plume of this eruption. The plume is 400 meter high. So we were at a safe 4 kilometer distance, and the lava flow was coming until our residence, but at a slow speed, so we were all safe. We observed that with telescope. And so, as was mentioned very well by Shannon and by Marc and Charlotte and Eleanor, clearly we are interested in analog simulations, simulation where we use this analog of the Moon and Mars just for the science that we can do to better understand what we can do at the Moon and Mars, for a place where we can test instruments, a place also where we can test operation of what we will do with the robotic system, but also with astronauts. And so we have used the facilities at Mount Etna, as I mentioned, at Utah MDRS. In fact, thanks very much to MDRS because that's where we started in 2009, a series of a simulation every year where I was sending some students and young professionals every year, 2 or 3 crew at Utah. And then we thought we wanted also to develop some experience in Europe, build some facilities with easier access for European students and young professionals. And also 5 years ago, I entered into the International Moon-Based Alliance as a director together with Hank Rogers, where we own the ICEE facilities, and we are responsible for the operation of this base for research, but also for other applications. Now, okay, of course, we mentioned Atacama Desert. We have done just a series of simulation last year and also this year, and Iceland. But now Iceland, our Iceland initiative has been really amplified with the ICEE project, which I see a bit like a little kid of EuroMoonMars, but that can has grown up and can really go on his own legs. So indeed, we started in 2009 at MDRS, and we had a program. At that time, it was mostly a program to validate the preparation for Mars Express and also for Smart One, which we had in operation. But also we started to do field research, laboratory research. We demonstrated instruments for future landers and rovers. And also we got acquainted with the technologies of habitat, what you would need in an habitat that would be a laboratory on the Moon and Mars. Clearly, as mentioned by Shannon, key is a human aspect, and clearly it's a great platform for learning about yourself, how you work in a team, performance, how to put the various priority, safety first, simulation, research, and we say after this you have outreach and communication, hard work, and low pay and eternal glory. This is the order of the different factors that enter into the EuroMoonMars simulation, and a great opportunity for training of young researchers, but also together with advanced researchers. So in the US, for instance, we brought some experiments which were developed by colleagues, for instance, from NASA Ames, those that built the X-ray spectrometer on Curiosity, the came-in. We had a field copy that we used. We had a Raman spectrometer, the reflectance spectrometer. We had a microscope, and also we looked at some microbial DNA analysis. At that time, in 2009, it was the first time there was a PCR done, analysis done in the desert. We brought it with us, but it was very basic technique that you know that we brought the equipment. We also did a instrument test, like we tested a ground penetrating radar of Jet Propulsion Lab. It's a very miniaturized system that could be flown in the future. We tested drilling with 3 astronauts. So when you are on Mars, it takes 3 astronauts to drill. And we took some core drills that we analyzed for their content in minerals, but also in organics and in life. And we always use a small rover as a precursor. You know, if you are a lazy astronaut, you don't want always to wait 1 hour through the airlock. So sometimes you send the rover and check exactly where you will want to go later for your EVA. So we have also organized every year some 2 or 3 so-called EuroMoonMars workshops. These were hosted at ESTEC until 2 years ago, where because of pandemics, we are not able to go. Actually, this week we are able again to go to ESTEC, so we are organizing a little visit on Thursday, the 7th of April. If some of you want to join, you will be welcome. And in 2015, you know that ICEE facilities was built by Hank Rogers and Paul is a collaborator architect, and it has been made available to NASA for long duration tests, like 1 year or 6 months, mostly psychology, long duration isolation. Then in 2018, I entered in the International Moon-Based Alliance with Hank Rogers, and we have changed completely the philosophy of using this base. we are using it for shorter term, where we can actually change inside, improve the technologies, and use it with a diversity of experimenters. So, and also we can use it for moon simulation, which can be shorter, because at the beginning we'll have some mission to the moon that will last only 10 days, possibly 2 weeks, before we have long duration mission. So we have really refurbished the inside of the ICES. We have performed a number of campaigns. Those campaigns which are organized together with EuroMoonMars as a research. We call it EuroMoonMars IMA ICES, in short EMIS, and we give them a lot of EMIS awards for their courage and for their motivation to do research. These are, for instance, some geology students from Free University Amsterdam doing their meta thesis, documenting the samples. And actually, we got some nice papers out of that. Then turning lava tubes. Okay, you know it all from Charlotte and Marc, that we had some scouting campaign already in 2018, but now it's Iceland belongs to ICES. And there was this beautiful campaign that was organized by the Chile's team last year. So in order also to capitalize on all this experience that were acquired by these young professionals, and we have created an academy where we try to get credit for the different experience that they are performing, both the analog simulation part, but also some experimental training or theoretical training. And we try also to develop some new modules that incorporate business, project management, looking for sponsors, and also some part on humanities and art. So we try, I think we can make available this framework of academy, actually also to recognize various activities and achievement from the various groups that are developing analog research campaign. Eventually, sometime we land in the city up. I think we got the coordinates wrong. We wanted to land on the moon. Here we landed in the center of The Hague for an outreach event. It was an electronic arts festival. And so I had my astronaut on duty. So Agatha and Matt from the Analogue Astronaut Training Center, you will see them a bit later, landing with our lander and making a demo for astronauts. So actually very early on, we used a facility at ESTEC. And actually this facility is available. If some of you would like to use it, eventually we can even move it out of ESTEC. That's the plan. It's a 6-person caravan that was repurposed to laboratory. And this is a place where we were testing some of the instruments and some of the protocols before going to the next level of analog research. And we have a set of instruments there. We had spectrometers, telescopes, and so on.
Yes. We are running slowly out of time.
Yeah, okay, so just in short, yes, we have to do outreach. So we linked with international IF, COTPA, and SALFA for outreach. And clearly, what we have to do all is try to contribute to the different challenges of what will be the operation of a moon village. So, I'm going to go very fast, maybe like a slideshow on this workshops. It's mostly about people. We have also collaborated with the Lunares for some campaign where we send some astronauts, some also operation support, some equipment, and we have also our campaign in Poland together with the ATC. So you will hear from Agatha. We organized also a campaign even in the middle of the pandemic when it was feasible. And we are going to have a campaign, actually, 2 campaigns in April. So these are some views of some of the EuroMoonMars Poland crew. We are doing some technology, medical, ergonomics experimentation. But I think Agatha will go a bit more on that. Also, quantifying the remote support, the planning, and so on. And I would like to end on very recent news, because I'm not sure if we have a dedicated Chile Atacama report. We just had a campaign which was conducted at the beginning of March, and where we had a team of some 9 participants from EuroMoonMars and some 8 participants from the University of Atacama that went to high altitude to do mostly a science-driven campaign addressing so geophysics, geochemistry, astrobiology, high altitude medicine, and measuring the cryosphere at a high altitude in Atacama. We went to the so-called Laguna Verde for doing some sampling of interest for geochemistry, but also for astrobiology. This was the camp base of the group, and eventually, thanks to the strength of women, which were a strong part of this expedition, 3 of them reached the altitude of 6,300 meters, and among them 2 women reached this altitude, and then we returned there. So now my last slide is what are the next steps. So also this year we launched some payload to ISS, a gallery of art, but that's another platform we call EuroMoonMars that developed this moon gallery project. We have a campaign in Poland next week. We will have a campaign in Etna in June. You have heard about the ICEE campaign. We plan also 2 campaigns at ICEE in November, but also together with a large analog research workshop that could be the follow-up of the CHASM workshop. We are part of a number of conferences at EGU in Vienna, in Athens, in COSPA, in Paris ICEE, where there are some papers actually from some of you there. So we look forward to see you. We organize also some dedicated workshop in various places in Toulouse, Nizza. We will have something also in Padova. We'll contribute also to the ISU Space Studies program. Now I want just also to end saying that we have a series of grants. We call them Young Lunar Explorers Grant or Young Galilean Explorers Grant for those of you that can participate to our operation. We have 120 publications on ADS, if you search EuroMoonMars. And since 2008, we have got 150 bachelor or master students working on a program. And so we have this number of reports. So we try now to order them, make them available also in electronic form, that they could be part of a database that would help, in particular in the area linked with this, what we learned from previous campaign. Now, I think it's good in analog research sometimes to reinvent the wheel, because you learn how to be creative and so on. So there is you have to have a mixture, having the opportunity to learn what others have done, but also learn to do also some mistakes, because you learn a lot from mistakes.
That's very true, Bernard. We're going to switch shortly.
Yeah, and so I would like to end now also just mentioning that we just made some funding proposal with a few million euros, and we hope in September to get also some money where we could support some of this research program. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Bernard.
Just a note, so now I'll from also EuroMoonMars will just present a quick few slides, just 5 minutes. Bernard, do stay online so that if people have questions,
I'm staying.
they will
Yes.
ask them to you and our directly. Thank you so much.
Well, actually, I don't know if anyone has a question to Bernard right now. I think everybody's hungry, Bernard.
Yeah. What's for the important question? Where do we come from, and what's for lunch?
So where do we come from? What's for lunch? So sandwiches is for lunch. Sorry, nothing fancy, but you know it's going to be very fancy. And I think we have. So you're from Italy, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Italy. So we have Italy, Spain. I think the US. Then we have Netherlands, and you know them. Chile, Italy, France, the UK, right?
Wow.
Then you from Italy, right? Italy. Behind is Germany. Ben, you from America, right? And we have two guests over there. Where are you from? The UK. Perfect. Then we have Samuel, who's also from the UK. We have Alistair from BIS from the UK. Kind of a mix, right? Or just the UK? Just from the UK. Okay. You know, Patrick from NSU. You're from Italy and Brazil. Switzerland, so Ticino and Brazil. Then we have Simon from BIS, also 100% UK, right? 100% UK. Then we have Alan Field over there, UK. Bruce? Wales. Okay, Wales. It's you here, it's always got lovely accent. And of course, yes, Switzerland. Ooh.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for the wonderful presentation about the EuroMoonMars. And Michael and Shang-Chi is the excellent speaker. Yes, so I just used the little time to report about the EuroMars Moon, the human factors research about the space habitat. So the title is Integrating the Human Factor in the Spacecraft, Lunar and Mars Habitat. So first, we can look at this. This is the International Space Station. The International Space Station has so many equipment to marshal the human, to marshal the space and some factors. So we can look at this. This is very complex, right? So they have so many equipment. So they will to induce the negative emotion about the astronaut and the crew. So the crew and astronaut performance will decreased. So how to use the good habitability tool and method to improve and increase the space habitability is important questions. So let me to introduce the literature reviews subject areas. We can look at this. This is the basic knowledge of the project about the spacecraft environment and the astronaut and the spacecraft interactive system. And then we can see that a human and machine, computer and environment, the interactive is very important. And in the spacecraft, especially International Space Station, they have so many stressors and to induce the stress response of the astronaut. So I just to currently research program, we can see that the International Space Station's internal environment to interactive the astronaut is that, right? So we used 3 projects to explosions. The first, to use the visuality, the VR equipment for the space station, color impact investigations. And we can to investigate the different colors because the University of Leeds, I'm the PhD candidate of a University of Leeds. And need a University of Leeds to research the different color is very famous. So we combine the different color into the internal environment. You look at this crew chromium. So we use a different color to test the participant, the emotion response, subjective response, and physiological. And we also can use different simulations, hand down and rest posture, and sit up, normal sit posture, and hand up posture to simulate the different gravity. Yes. So this is the first program. The second. Okay, this is second. Second, we also can investigate the color lighting. The different lighting can affect the human preference. And if we have the lighting have so many factors such as color temperature, luminance, and the color, right? We can look at this room. This lighting is warm, but how to use the good color lighting to improve the human preference? This is very important. We also combine the visibility and the EEG. We all know the EEG have a significant effect about the color lighting. Yes. Yeah, so we use we set up the crew cabin in the visibility and to test the participant EEG. Yes. And second and third, we also use this is the FNIRS, the functional near spectroscopy, to test the human's mental workload. Yes, in the different gravity and the different the color or lightings the carbon. So we this program to use to test the human's pre-cortex, the mental workload, to test the oxygen, the blood oxygen in high or low. Yes. So this is our group about the EuroMoonMars to test this aim to service the chilly ice, emperor, or other the real space habitat, astronaut or crews, human preference. So finally, with the supposed Professor Foy and the college, we have created a new group of study and optimize the human preference in space habitat, with the aim to optimize the psychological emotion and mission performance of astronauts in extremely environment. It can cover all areas of study relevant to people, including the design, psychological, and psychological society and environment. Yes, so you are very welcome to join us to collaborate and progress together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I also thank you, EuroMoonMars. Thank you, Dana. I guess if you have any questions, you can shoot emails. We're a bit late on schedule, so if you want to have a break, this is now. This refreshments. After this, yeah, I know, clapping for the coffee, of course. But now we're going to have a refreshments. Then we'll do a quick video for the Austrian Space Forum. I'm going to send you the video on the WhatsApp group. They have dared us to make a lot of noise, and I want you guys to make way more noise than they did, because they're having a workshop right now, the Austrian Space Forum workshop time, like they're working on science experiments, which is why they couldn't be here today, but we'll have a presentation from them and just want to scare them, you know, we don't regret they're not there. Okay, so refreshment time. I don't know, Bernard, if you want to stay online, people can just come talk next to the speaker and you'll be answering your questions. And otherwise, Bernard, I hope you have a good recovery.
Yes, thank you. And I follow you. Yes, a great start.
Thank you so much.
All the best to you.
Oh, do you want to remove your Oh, yeah,
I wish this time.
Yeah.
I should just wait, you were pretending it was on the top. Yes, okay. Charlotte, Michael, we can together take a picture. Also, you also seem pretty few days. Also, fish from Mars as well.
We started, no, we're not special.
But not because we will exercise my society and essentially. Oh, use the Michael. I don't quite know the message. Use the Michael for ice because you want to record it out. And instead of messaging, we can use to say. What one of you free to just put it here if you like. So is it a picture like we use? Yeah. Is it going to say exactly I do
We are space none of it. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram. But you can just say hashtag.
We can create. So what I was going to say is, July is looking to recruit. And then
you can just.
is there a picture that we can use for
Yeah.
or it's okay, and I can upload that picture. Brendan, it's all one organization.
Yeah, so EuroMoonMars is like it's mainly for students, young professionals.
Yeah. But not either, but not.
Yeah, but our leaders, so the guys with the heavy French.
So in a way, you can talk because I think your group is based in Iceland, you're based in Leeds.
Yeah. So EuroMoonMars is technically based wherever Bernard is at home. So usually it's but sometimes he's wrong. Yeah. So then he always makes connections. But we found that at some point, so EuroMoonMars has maybe like 60 semi-active members. Then maybe there are about 20. And yeah, it's actually very nice. But at some point, we were for the show, especially we were 27 out of 33 in EuroMoonMars. And then we were a little bit like maybe we should split up. So now we're sort of working partners.
ICEE Space is a mission focusing on technology research development to Iceland or.
So that's why you two speaking on ice.
Good. Perfect.
Also, basically that trying to build that freedom.
Yes, so he has EuroMoonMars.